save the boy.
The Daniel Martell, the stepfather.
He's on meth.
He's on meth.
He sells meth. And he makes it. And he don't like the kids. He beats the kids. He beats her daughter.
That's what I'm saying.
But her daughter might know more than she's saying. I said, your daughter's lying. You must know what happens. Only 3 people in the state.
Exactly.
We had to do polygraphs and everything.
You did a polygraph too?
Yeah, because we used to drop the kids off. Over there.
So you and Cindy and...
Daniel Martell was never just a stepfather. Not to Lily. Not to Jack. Not in the ways that matter. Behind the polite smiles and stage photos, behind the carefully curated social media posts, something far more sinister was unfolding. He exposed those children to something no child should ever breathe in: toxic fumes, unregulated chemicals, burn pits releasing black smoke in the dead of night. And for a long time, no one saw it. No school reports, no medical calls, no neighbor complaints that ever stuck. Because Daniel Martell knew how to keep it hidden, until he couldn't. Now the truth is coming out, and it's worse than anyone feared. What the RCMP found behind that cottage, the real backyard, the part fenced off with scrap metal and warning signs peeled off, it wasn't just suspicious. It was dangerous. Investigators discovered remnants of industrial solvents, melted plastic, scorched rubber, and a fire pit that had been used far too often for anything innocent. Forensic teams brought in air quality meters. The soil came back contaminated. Residue from burned materials matched chemicals known to cause hallucinations, respiratory distress, even neurological damage in children. But it's not just what was burned. It's how often, it's when, and it's what else was nearby when the burning happened. RCMP confirmed they recovered scorched clothing fibers, children's sizes, a half-melted toy, and tools, masks, gloves, cans with faded labels. The implications are horrifying, because what the evidence now suggests is this: Lily and Jack Sullivan weren't just neglected. They weren't just at risk. They were actively exposed to harm. Not once, not by accident, but repeatedly, deliberately, quietly, all behind a veil of domestic normalcy. All while Daniel Martell smiled for the camera, played the role, and told everyone the kids were just fine. They weren't. And the moment you know that, the moment you realize those children may have lived in fear, confusion, or even pain, the disappearance stops feeling random. It starts to feel inevitable. Because if the environment was already lethal, if they were already suffering exposure, and if someone felt the heat closing in, what lengths would they go to in order to make sure the truth never surfaced? The RCMP isn't saying everything, but they don't need to. The fire pit, the fumes, the tools, all of it paints one picture. Lily and Jack Sullivan were in danger, long before anyone noticed they were gone. It started with a neighbor's casual comment, an odd smell in the air, a mix of chemicals, scorched plastic and thick, acrid smoke drifting across yards late into the night. At first, no one thought much of it, just another backyard fire. Maybe someone burning leaves. But then it kept happening, week after week, always after dark, always in the same part of the Martell Sullivan property. Eventually, someone got closer, saw the pit, saw the flames, and saw Daniel Martell standing over it with gloves, tools, and a bundle of scorched wiring. He wasn't burning garbage. He was stripping copper, illegally, by torching insulated electrical wire. Open flames. No ventilation, no protection, just feet away from the children's sandbox. That's not just reckless. That's toxic exposure. Burning PVC-insulated wire releases dioxins, hydrochloric acid, benzene, all known carcinogens, all dangerous to breathe, especially for small, developing lungs. RCMP environmental specialists later confirmed the air and soil in that yard were compromised. Contamination levels near the burn site exceeded residential safety limits. Residue collected from the grass, tree bark, and even children's toys tested positive for polyaromatic hydrocarbons and lead particulates. Lily and Jack weren't just near the danger. They lived in it, played in it, ate near it, slept near it, breathed it in, and still no reports were filed. No agency intervened, because no one saw the full picture. Until now. The neighbor's observation, dismissed for years, suddenly became a thread that unraveled the truth. Because once investigators knew what to look for, they found everything. Photos, videos, toolkits, receipts for salvaged scrap copper, and GPS logs showing Martell frequenting abandoned construction sites late at night. He wasn't just a backyard burner. He was running an operation. And he didn't care who got hurt in the process. Toxic fumes, neurotoxic particles, long-term health consequences, and 2 children living in the middle of it all. This wasn't parenting. It wasn't survival. It was calculated neglect and environmental abuse. And when you realize how much Martell had to hide, you start to ask, what else was he willing to burn? What else was he willing to erase? And if those burn pits could speak, what secrets would they tell? Burning PVC insulation, like the kind found on scrap wire, releases dioxins, carcinogens, neurotoxins, chemicals that are not only toxic but persistent. They seep into soil, cling to skin and hair, settle in the lungs of anyone nearby. This was an accident. It wasn't a one-time error in judgment. It was regular, ongoing, a pattern of behavior Daniel Martell repeated, week after week, often in the evenings, sometimes in the early mornings, lighting up burn pits just feet from where Jack and Lily played. This wasn't trash disposal. It was copper stripping, melting plastic off valuable wire, likely for resale, and in the process, exposing 2 small children to toxic smoke. Smoke neighbors described as chemical, sharp, unnatural, sometimes drifting down the block. The smell was enough to make some shut their windows. But no one realized just how dangerous it was, or how close the children were to it all. Jack's toy trucks were found just meters from the burn area. Lily's chalk drawings still faintly marked the patio. These were not distant observers. They were in it, breathing it in every single time he lit those fires. RCMP environmental forensics now confirmed that residue consistent with chlorinated plastics was detected in soil samples behind the house. The same plastics used in household wiring. The same materials known to release highly toxic dioxins when burned. And Martell knew. He had done it before. Witnesses now say he even bragged about the clean copper he pulled. He understood the value, but he ignored the cost, not just to himself, but to the children under his care. This is what neglect looks like. Not screaming, not hitting, just quiet, repeated choices that endanger the innocent while pretending it's nothing. This is exposure. This is risk. This is what Jack and Lily were breathing before they vanished. And now, it's part of the investigation RCMP cannot ignore. RCMP didn't reveal this at first. Not to the public. Not to the press. But internal case files, now reviewed by forensic environmental specialists, confirm what many in the community had quietly feared for months. The backyard Daniel Martell controlled was more than just a cluttered space. It was a toxic zone. From that small suburban yard, RCMP sees a disturbing collection of evidence. Scorched metal shards, melted plastic residues, stripped wire casings, and rudimentary burn tools often associated with illegal copper recovery operations. These weren't the remnants of a backyard bonfire. They were byproducts of something darker. Repeated attempts to burn insulation off electrical wiring using open flames, releasing known carcinogens into the air. And all of this took place just feet from where Lily and Jack Sullivan played, ate, and spent their childhood days. Witnesses, neighbors who live in adjacent homes, told investigators they'd noticed the acrid smell for months. Bitter, chemical, like burnt plastic and rubber. They saw smoke drifting over fences at odd hours. Some even noted Martell wheeling out garbage bins late at night, full of char material. One neighbor described seeing him hunched over a smoldering fire pit with a respirator mask, while the children were nearby without one. RCMP's environmental crime team tested the soil around the burn site and found elevated levels of dioxins, furans, and other combustion byproducts linked to burning chlorinated plastics, especially PVC, the type commonly used in electrical insulation. Dioxins are not just toxic, they're some of the most dangerous industrial byproducts known to science. They're linked to cancer, immune system damage, and developmental problems in children. And then came the medical files. After cross-referencing pediatric records and statements from healthcare providers, investigators found what they now believe are early signs of environmental exposure in both children: chronic respiratory inflammation, persistent fatigue, unexplained skin and eye irritation. In isolation, these symptoms might have looked minor, but together, with the backyard burn evidence, they painted a harrowing picture. For years, those warning signs were dismissed, brushed off as seasonal allergies, childhood asthma, sensitive eyes. But now, with hard evidence in hand, the RCMP is reclassifying those symptoms not as coincidences, but as consequences. This isn't just about what happened the night Lily and Jack vanished. It's about what they were exposed to for months, maybe years, before that night. It's about a man who knowingly burned hazardous materials in a family space. And it's about a system that didn't ask the right questions until it was too late. Because this isn't just a disappearance case anymore. It's a case of environmental harm, of criminal neglect, and of children endangered long before they ever went missing. Burning insulation like this isn't just unethical. It's illegal in Nova Scotia, explicitly banned under provincial environmental law, due to the extreme toxicity of fumes released when PVC and other plastics are incinerated. These aren't harmless backyard fires. They're chemical events that can poison soil, air, and the lungs of anyone nearby, especially children. Now, environmental officials are involved. Multiple agencies have quietly stepped in. Health Canada has been notified. The Department of Environment has collected samples. Hazard reports have been drafted. Yet despite this wave of regulatory attention, one fact remains unchanged. Daniel Martell hasn't been charged. Not for environmental violations, not for endangering children, not even for operating illegal burn pits. So the community is asking, louder than ever, why is this man still walking free? Why? Despite mounting evidence and expert input, have no formal charges been laid? Why are the authorities so hesitant to speak, even now? And the most unsettling question of all, who exactly is being protected? Because when dangerous behavior is ignored, when children's health is collateral damage, when neighbors speak up, but silence follows, it's no longer just negligence. It's a system shielding the wrong people. 1 month before Lily and Jack disappeared, a relative raised quiet but urgent concerns. She had noticed changes, subtle at first, but persistent. Lily, usually bright-eyed and energetic, had constant redness in her eyes and a lingering cough that wouldn't go away. Jack had trouble sleeping. He was unusually fatigued, withdrawn, not his normal, curious self. They weren't just under the weather. Something was wrong. At the time, those around them shrugged it off. Seasonal allergies, a bug going around, maybe just growing pains. But now, in hindsight, those symptoms form a disturbing pattern. They were red flags, signals of something toxic in their environment, literally toxic. The truth that's emerging now is far darker than anyone expected. RCMP internal files, not released to the public, confirmed that soil samples from the Sullivan Martell backyard showed chemical contamination, burnt plastic residue, heavy metals, dioxins, the kind released when PVC insulation is burned in open-air fires. And these weren't isolated incidents. Daniel Martell had been operating illegal burn pits in his backyard, burning scrap wire to strip copper, a practice that releases neurotoxins and carcinogens into the air. Tools found on site. Witnesses who saw him do it. Burned debris collected as evidence. And right next to those fires, a swing set, a sandbox, children's toys. Lily and Jack lived, played, and breathed in that backyard. For months, maybe years. This isn't some abstract environmental violation. It's not just a breach of municipal code. This is child endangerment on a chemical level. Long-term exposure to these fumes can cause respiratory distress, cognitive issues, and even developmental delays in children. And here's the most damning part. Health Canada has been informed. Environmental inspectors have weighed in. The science is not in dispute. But Daniel Martell hasn't been charged. Why? Why is this man still free? Why have officials not taken decisive action? And what would have happened if Lily and Jack hadn't gone missing? Would this exposure have ever been investigated at all? Because now, in light of everything, it's impossible to ignore. The neglect wasn't just emotional. The abuse wasn't just psychological. It was physical. It was toxic. And it was allowed to continue. This is no longer just a tragedy. It's a system failure. And someone is still protecting them. The community is no
Good morning,
longer
everyone.
whispering.
My name is Michelle.
They're demanding answers.
Welcome to another
Because this
video.
isn't a case of missed
It is
warning
Monday
signs.
morning, the 16th
It's a case of ignored
June.
evidence.
It's a few
And the more
days
that comes
since
out,
I took
the
this
clearer it
channel
becomes.
to Canada.
This isn't just
and
about
the
where
case
Lily
of
and Jack
missing
went.
6-year-old
It's about
Lily
what they were
and
living
her
through,
4-year-old brother,
right in front
Jack
of everyone's
Sullivan,
eyes.
who have been
This
missing
isn't
now
just about
since
Daniel
the
Martell.
2nd of May.
It's
They were
bigger than
reported
one man
missing
with a burn
just
pit
before
and a
10
history
a.m.
of silence.
on that day.
It's
by
about
their
accountability,
mother, Malia Brooks
about a system
Murray.
that looked the other way.
You'll know the details
Jack and
if
Lily
you've
Sullivan
been
didn't just
following this
vanish
case
into
from
thin
the
air.
beginning.
They
The
were
day
let
after,
down,
May the 3rd,
again and again,
Malia did
by
an interview
adults who should have known
to
better,
the media.
by neighbors who
Shortly
noticed but
thereafter,
stayed
later
quiet,
that very same
by
day,
officials who saw
she
signs
left.
and chose to
She
lay over
left
action.
with her
The
mother
coughs,
and her
the
baby.
fatigue, the
The
red
baby that she
eyes,
shared
those
with
were
Lily and
warnings.
Jack's stepfather,
The backyard
Daniel
full of toxic
Martell.
smoke.
Daniel
That was a crime
is
scene
now
hiding
not
in
allowed to
plain
see his
sight.
baby.
Now, the
In
man
a
who
recent
exposed him to
interview,
poison,
he used the
the
word
one who
kids
melted
in
plastic
plural,
feet from
so
where they
I
played,
assume he's not
may have
allowed to
exposed
see his
himself
other two
to
biological
charges,
children.
to scrutiny, to a public that's finally done being silent. Because the world is watching, the silence is breaking, and what was buried by smoke, by excuses, by indifference, is rising fast to the surface. This was never just a mystery. It was a warning ignored. And now, there are no more places to hide.